from Cebu, from our home base, the Mariapolis Peace in Tagaytay, one of the little towns of the Focolare Movement. We welcome you as you join us in a journey of discovery to find out what our common call is and what the different vocations are. We thank you all for being our companions in this journey, particularly those who are joining us from other countries. To give your feedback or to ask your questions, you may interact with us using the chat function. The word vocation has a broad meaning. But to begin with, what is a vocation? Let us go around the world to ask some of our friends this question. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word vocation?
God's call is the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear the word vocation. A calling that is something for which you are chosen by God to do His will.
Đối với tôi, ơn gọi là tiếng gọi từ trái tim, thứ Đức Chúa dẫn dắt trong tất cả những điều mà tôi muốn đạt được ở cuộc sống này. Con đường mà tôi phải chọn để có thể giành được hạnh phúc, bình an cho bản thân và người khác.
Para mí la vocación es el llamado de Dios a seguirlo a Él.
Hola, soy Paula de Argentina. Para mí, cada persona tiene una vocación y cada una decide cómo vivirla para poder ponerle así todo el amor a eso que decidamos.
Hola, soy Ama de Argentina y para mí la vocación es el camino al que Dios nos llama, en el que nosotros podemos dar todos nuestros dones para los demás.
If God calls me, I feel happy and great. And also, I want to choose the way He wants for me.
La vocation, c'est un appel que je nous lance pour faire son œuvre. Cet appel peut être une consacration à lui ou au mariage. En dehors de ces deux appels, il y a aussi le côté professionnel. Merci.
Vocation for me is listening your inner voice and make decision for that. Because when you can listen to your inner voice, the Holy Spirit will guide you to find your vocation.
Vocation is the love of God for me. That's why I'm here in Tagaytay, planting vegetable.
For me, vocation is my quickest way to God. And it is also the path that will fulfill me.
For me, vocation is a gift of love from God. Because of His love for me, He calls me to something great. And my response is my gift of love to Him, a free gift of love.
You too may key in your short answer by chat. Truly, there are many vocations. In these days, allow us to share with you what we can offer. The different vocations within the Focolare Movement founded by Chiara Lubich. This year marks Chiara's birth centennial. We celebrate this occasion in many ways and in different places. Today, we will share with you some aspects of Chiara's legacy, Besides the spirituality of unity, which aims for the fulfillment of Jesus' prayer that all men be one, Chiara gave birth to a spiritual family at the service of the church and of society. It is like a tree with many branches, all distinct, yet united in going to God together. Now, let us get to know more about this family tree, starting with the experiences of Paulina de Los Angeles, Sarah and Angel Puertoliano, Al Miranda, Alvin Lorente, Brother Ryan, a Saverian missionary, and Sister Belen from the Workers of Christ the Worker. Those of you who love plants and gardening would understand how a single sprout can give so much joy and hope. For us in the Focolare, this sprout, the spring of new life, can refer to our young people. It is our joy that one of them is here with us today to start this beautiful sharing of lives. Ciao, Paulina!
Hi, I'm Paulina from the Philippines, and I'm here to share with you my experience as a youth of the big family of the Focolare Movement. Even before I was born, my grandparents and their children were already actively participating in the movement. It was through this that they understood that the most important thing to do in life is to love the person next to you. As we were growing up, my siblings and cousins were brought up by our parents to follow this one value. When I was younger, my grandmother would bring us with her to join the different activities of the movement, such as meetings for young children, where we were taught how we can love those around us in different ways. Being the first one to love in the house by helping our parents with chores, for example, or loving the people who hurt you in school and forgiving them. As I grew up, however, my participation with the movement lessened because I thought that it was really silly that the answers to all my problems were just to love and to love and to love. For me, it was something really difficult to do. It was too simple and hard to understand. So throughout high school, university, the Focolare, the meetings with the young people, the congresses, and any other activities by the Focolare movement was never on my mind. Sometimes I would attend a big event with my family, but I never really showed any interest in becoming active. I buried myself more with my studies and playing more active roles in the organizations that I'm part of, but on my graduation year, the thought of the Focolare landed on my mind out of nowhere. I suddenly felt the desire to reacquaint myself with the movement and to understand again how Chiara showed me how I should live when I was little. I thought that the best way to do this was by attending a year of formation for the youth of the movement in Lopiano, Italy. The first little town of the Focolare movement, which was founded in 1964. It has a population of 900, of whom 70 come from 5 continents. There are men and women Focolarini, families, young people, lay people involved in working for society, priests, religious, and occasionally a bishop. The citizens live, work, and study there, and through their daily actions give witness to the phrase from the Gospel, "Love one another as I have loved you." Making the decision was difficult for me because I was already accepted into med school, which was a long-time dream of mine. I quickly realized that going meant giving up all the hard work I did in terms of academics and entrusting everything fully in God. In the end, I gave my yes because I felt as if I really needed to understand how I can love the other more. How I can go out of myself, go out of my comfort zone and the comfort of my family, and how I can reach the people who are most in need. Before coming to Italy, I attended the 1-month youth formation in Mariapolis Pace, Peace, in Tagaytay, which is another little town of the Focolare in the Philippines. I felt like I was a young girl again meeting Jesus, the Focolare, and Chiara for the first time. It felt as if I was at home, as if God welcomed me back into His arms after being away for so long. In this experience, I was given so many opportunities to love the others, and I finally understood why. The answer is always loving. Leaving was difficult, but I was ready to face a more difficult experience, which was leaving home and going to Lopiano for a year. Now I am speaking to you from Lopiano. The experience that I had here was 100 times more difficult than what I had in the Philippines, partly because it's so far away from home, partly because of the differences in cultures that we have here, and partly because of the social situation that happened this year. It was in Lopiano where I learned how much more I needed to embrace suffering and hardships. It was in Tagaytay where I learned the foundations of loving. But it was here in Lopiano where I needed to put into practice all of the philosophies and ideals that I learned from the movement. In Lopiano, I lived with 31 girls 24/7, and all of us came from different backgrounds and cultures. We needed to live together in one house, study together, work together. It was really difficult, and there was a lot of misunderstandings among us. Even with the smallest and simplest activities like the mode of how we should arrange and clean our house, or the words that we use in talking with each other. But it was through these moments of difficulty that I learned how possible it is to open your mind and listen to the other in order to find common ground and live in an environment that serves everybody's needs. Now, I will be coming back to the Philippines, and I will be entering med school this coming August. In this new chapter of my life, I plan to bring everything that I learned here in Lopiano, starting with loving the new people that I will be meeting immediately and with joy. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope to see you in the Philippines. Ciao!
Hello, I'm Angel Puertoliano, and this is my wife, Sarah. We've been married for 18 years. We have 2 daughters. Trisha is 17, Sophia is 10 years old. I'm not feeling well, so currently we're practicing physical distancing. So Sarah is just in the other room, but we'd like to share a little about our life.
Hi. Before I met Angel, I had a boyfriend for 8 years who works in a cruise ship, and we were planning to get married. But when he came back, another woman was carrying his child. He still wanted us to get married and keep the baby. I decided to end the relationship since I want someone whom I can trust and share a life that is God-centered.
I also had a relationship of 4 years, which didn't work out because I wanted to discover God's plan for me. Through the Focolare, I realized that I want a life of love and unity as a married person. So I asked Jesus, if you want me to marry, help me find a girl. Also a good job that can support our future family. After some time, an opportunity for a good paying job came, but the girl is still nowhere to be found. It was at around this time that I met Sarah, who was also involved in the Focolare Movement.
Angel and I got to know each other better when an Italian engaged couple came to the Philippines to volunteer in Bukas Palad Social Center in Pasay City. When this Italian couple would go out on a date, we and some friends went with them to chaperone. They became like our big brother and sister who helped start our relationship. Afterwards, Angel and I would often hear Mass after work and sometimes have dinner out. Soon we grew closer, always trusting in the love of God.
On February 9, 2002, we said our yes to love each other in this particular vocation because it is our way to sanctity. Right after our wedding, we moved into a small rented apartment so we can be independent from our own families in order to nurture our new life together. This apartment later became a hub for all our friends and family. Young couples would come to ask some advice and open up. We even celebrated a stag party for a friend before his incoming marriage.
In the early years, we needed to adjust to our different characters and upbringing. I don't usually cook, but I try to make a special chop suey for Angel by putting a lot of liver that I enjoy.
When the chop suey was served, I was looking for the vegetables. I commented that there was too much liver from the chop suey that I knew. Then I felt that Sarah was a bit offended. So later I confessed that I ate it out of love, since liver was not one of my favorites, and because I didn't have any choice.
Once a year, together with our children, we set aside things that we do not or seldom use. We ask them to choose which clothes or toys they would like to share to other children. Surprisingly, they sometimes give even their new ones. We gave this to Bukas Palad, and once we were able to donate when a fire broke out in a community in Tambo, Parañaque.
When our daughter Trisha was in junior high school, two of her classmates got into a relationship and later the girl became pregnant. The school's administration and their parents decided that they will no longer report to school. The situation was never explained to the rest of the class, and only Trisha and their barkada knew the real reasons. It was hard for Trisha, but we told her what is important is to remain in contact with these classmates, to offer her help and support without judgments. After the baby was born, Trisha would invite her barkada to see them whenever they went to the father's house. We are proud of her daughter because she remained in contact with her classmates, especially with the girl, despite receiving negative comments even from her own friends. As parents, we can only guide and support our children through difficult moments, hoping that they become expressions of God's love for others.
Communication is always a challenge in married life. I grew up in a family who is not expressive of affection, and because of pride, I usually resolve my problems on my own. Recently, I had a difficulty with my stressful boss. With much courage, I told Angel that I wanted to quit my job. He listened to all my sentiments, and together we understood that since the children are still studying, it would be better for me to look for a less stressful job and pray for the will of God. Fortunately, my boss was reassigned to another area, so I did not pursue my resignation. Those crying nights became an opportunity to be more open, and it allowed us to strengthen our love for each other.
As married people, we discover and nurture our vocation amidst the daily challenges by trusting always in the love of God. And whenever we fail, we try to help each other to start all over again. Thank you.
Arms are joined in an embrace, those who are alone. We raise and offer our hand to those outcast and lonely. This is how we do in the family. In the family we say, live for the other. In the family we give all that we are. Embrace the wide that goes beyond all that we hold dear. In the family, the whole world is here. People are so eager to encourage. just as you are, to comfort you, give repose to those who are sad and worried. This is how we do in the family. In the family we stay, we live for the other. In the family we give all that we are, and raise a heart that goes beyond all that we hold dear. In the family the whole world is here. It is the cord that binds 1,000 hearts, put together like a thread, like a symbol of we eat one bread, growing beyond many colors. One with the fire, the lights of the Lord, wrapping up creation a little more and more. In the family we stay, live for the other. In the family we give all that we are. The grace of God goes beyond all that we hold dear. In the family the whole world is here. In the family we stay, live for the other. In the family we give all that we are. The grace of God goes beyond all that we hold dear. In the family the whole world is here. One for the other we stay. All of ourselves we give. Innocent grace we say. All of creation we
I am Ao, married with 2 adult children and a son-in-law. I presently work as a cake designer and baker for our little cafe. Doing the will of God in our family and at work, when I try my best to perfect a little cake order for a client to be happy, I thought that these were the only things that God was asking of me. Then I felt the call to attend meetings that fed my spirit, like the Word of Life, retreats, and schools for spiritual formation. It made me vigilant of my prayer life, which increased my union with God and somehow taught me how to bring this Christian spirit to my endeavors. I was happy and fulfilled in my family life, but there was something missing. I sensed that there may be far more that God wanted to do through my life than what I have been experiencing. In a Word of Life meeting, I encountered this phrase of the gospel: I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved, and will come in and go out and find pasture. In it, I understood that it would be enough to do something tangible in order to alleviate sufferings in the poor and those who are unhappy, in order to go beyond the gate and find this new fullness of life. As a non-practicing registered nurse, I was attracted to the Cena chapter of Dumaguete, assigned in the Negros Oriental Provincial Hospital. So I learned how to harmonize things and started participating in Cena actively, going on weekly duties with other volunteers. I became fascinated by this corporal work, which was like living the gospel in the early days by being the hands and feet of Jesus, the greatest healer. In this way, I take up the cross of others with joy despite the difficulties. Sinag allowed me to meet people from all walks of life. To name a few, I cannot forget Nathan and John, who were both suffering from leukemia since they were a year old, and until they both died at the age of 5. Their parents became like relatives to us, and they felt our love and support as we fought with them for medicines and laboratory tests for 2 years. At the start of February, visitations in the hospital were already restricted. The first 2 cases in the Philippines were Wuhan tourists who vacationed in Dumaguete. After the news broke out, we were already afraid to go, but it did not hinder us from helping our hospital. Seeing together the need, the core group of CNAG agreed to help medically the patients endorsed by the nurse of a ward or the social works office. Since then, we were able to assist mothers and their newborns through communication with the head nurse of the neonatal intensive care unit. We did our best to love these lonely mothers who come from far-flung barrios and islands with no family to support them. So the new normal is meetups in pharmacies, hospital parking lots, and even in my closed cafe. Technology made communication of decision-making easy and fast, and allowed us to establish an effective prayer brigade. And after a month, we have helped these babies with laboratory tests, medicines, blood procurement, and outright donations in food, clothing, and fare going home. Our rapport with the NICU brought forth the project of collecting donations of newborn clothing starter kits, which also gained support from our community, especially young mothers who were decluttering their homes during quarantine. CNAG also managed to send several new city magazines, bottled water, and snack packs for COVID patients and the first quarantine frontliners. After this, there were a lot of donors who came forward and successively gave out provisions too. CNAG also sourced and gave out N95 masks to ER nurse frontliners when there was a scarcity of supply. Because of CNAG's generous donors, HIV and COVID patients were also assisted with expensive laboratory tests. Despite not being able to visit, they feel our unity that somehow eased the mental and emotional stresses experienced by both patients and health workers. CNAG is not just a project. The goal is to have love growing within me, rippling through the others. We can do as many things possible, as long as it is done out of Jesus in the midst. I have found a way to answer to the cry of humanity by doing this corporal work of mercy, of visiting the sick. I have found a great gift of compassion as I listen to their sufferings. I have found Jesus in them, and in the end, He will ask me if I have loved them.
I am Alvin, married with 2 children. I'm a police officer in one of the towns of Leyte in the south of the Philippines. I met the ideal in 1996 when I was still studying in BISCA, now Visayas State University or BSU. Together with many youths who have found their respective vocations in the opera, I started to put into practice the life that I learned from the ideal. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit the Philippines, quarantine control points or QCPs were set up as part of the protocols to control the spread of COVID-19. I was assigned to man one of the QCPs from March to June 2020. In the QCPs, we were under the elements of unpredictable weather, prolonged duty shifts, and lack of sleep, and limited rest. In each moment of my QCP duty, I always asked the Holy Spirit to give me the grace for a conscious decision to make an act of love, to go beyond my limits, and go the extra mile that Jesus asked of me as a Christian in dealing with the people who come along. One time, travelers coming from another town were on board a 4-wheel vehicle as they stopped our QCP. They wanted to visit a family. When we asked them for the required documents, they could not produce some that were required by the protocols. Since I was the most senior police officer on the ground, all critical decisions are passed on to me regarding who to allow or disallow entry to Baybay City. I approached the group and asked them what the problem was. The driver told me they lacked some requirements. With all the love I could gather, I told him courteously that we could not allow them entry based on the protocols. At this moment, the person lost his temper and shouted bad words. He ridiculed us policemen, seeing that we were men of ill repute, and many similarly insulting words. In that very moment, I remember the art of loving, where Chiara suggested that to see every person as another Jesus to love. But deep inside me there was a struggle whether to see or not to see him as Jesus. Silently I prayed while listening attentively to him talking in front of me. He poured out his frustrations while I was conquering myself to see him as another Jesus to love. A few moments later, seeing that I did not react to his provocations, he calmed down and asked me, "What did you do?" Out of love, I explained to him that we are not closing our borders, that all they had to do was simply to comply with the requirements. I promised them that if they came back with the complete requirements, I would allow them to pass. I offered our apologies for their inconvenience, explaining to them that we police officers were only following orders from higher authorities to implement the protocols for the safety and protection of everyone against COVID-19 pandemic. After the conversation, the travelers group turned their vehicle around and returned home in peace. Also for me, I was at peace and was very happy because I was able to conquer myself and was able to love the other as Jesus would have loved him in my person.
I am Ryan Masri and I am religious. I belong to Sovereign Missionaries Congregation and I am from Indonesia. I would like to share with you my personal experience on the spirituality of unity in 3 different events: the Gen Fest, Youth Camp, and Interreligious Dialogue. When I attended the Gen Fest, an international gathering of youth organized by the Focolare here in Manila last 2018, I was so convinced that love unites. It was my first experience ever to attend such a big event. My heart felt overwhelmed to witness mostly young people who came from different backgrounds united by love. The diversity of religions and cultures of the participants became a bridge of enrichment and harmony which our world today is longing for. I vividly remember the day we had a social action. Our group was assigned to feed the children in an orphanage. On the way going there, a Belgian guy who sat beside me started the conversation. After knowing that I'm a religious brother who is studying theology, he gave his hand again to me, giving the sign of shaking for the second time. Then he said, "Good luck for your studies, friend, but do not forget that our God is not a knowledge, but a person." Last year, I went to Tagaytay to join the Focolare Youth Camp activity. I went there with some youth from our parish. In the morning of the first day, the MC talked about be the first one to love everyone, love your enemy, and so on. During lunchtime, we sat together around the table as a group. I noticed everyone left the table to take a glass of water for him or herself. Then during dinner, I took initiative to take water for everyone on the table and served them. They said, "Thank you, bro." And one of them said, "Ang bait mo talaga." I answered them, "Be the first one to love." I did not intend to teach them, but to remind. And as I expected, the following meals, they took the water for everyone in the table. Love transforms people. It makes miracle. Not only that, during meals, I took the initiative to share my simple experience of love. And it works. Though in the beginning it was hard for them to share because they are not used to it. But little by little, they started sharing their own experiences of love as well. It was for me a conviction that love defeats everything. Be the first one to love. The youth camp thus was a school of and school for love experience. Lastly, I have been involved in interreligious dialogue activity. As a Saverian, whose charism is to proclaim the kingdom of God to the non-Christians, I am called to dedicate totally and live out the spirit of dialogue towards other religions and beliefs. In carrying out this mission, love of God first and foremost become the foundation. Some people might think that the diversity of religions divides people. Some other believes that diversity is the bridge for unity, and I go with the last. To love everyone is our spiritual tool, without any judgment. In this line, last year we invited a Muslim friend to give a talk to our community. After the talk, I brought him home. On the way, he expressed his deeply gratitude. Bro, I'm so happy. Thank you for inviting me to your community. Even though I grew up in Christian neighborhood, this is my first time entering a religious seminary community. And I appreciate more the way you guys treat me, welcome me, and listen to me. That was a dialogue of life, when we as community were able to show love by listening to him attentively and caring as brothers among brothers, regardless our differences. In short, to love everyone. Thank you.
We look from distant shores to the other side, baffled by worlds unknown that the others hide, different by race and creed, leading separate lives. If we don't heal the wounds, how can we survive? What if I put myself on the other side? What if I take your pain and I make it mine? I know I can't hurt you without hurting myself. In everything I do, I will sing. No one is a stranger to me. No one is a stranger to me. I see my own face reflected in you. What I wish for myself is my wish for you too. And I'll find myself when I walk in your shoes. On the other side, if we walk side by side, we will carry on. Where there's a bridge to build is where we belong. That's where we belong. Where there's a stumbling block, we shall move beyond. in your shoes. No one is a stranger to me. No one is a stranger to me.
I am Sister Belen Sabido from Matanao, Davao del Sur. I belong to the Workers of Christ, the Worker Religious Institute, founded by Mother de Lindis Lusa in 1971 in the Diocese of Urdaneta, Pangasinan. I was raised from a simple and good family. I have 2 sisters, and I grew up feeling so blessed because we were taught to be good children, God-fearing, and have deep trust in God. I experienced a poor life, but I saw how my parents dreamed for our better future. My sisters and I finished our college education and are happy to live a life according to the vocation where we are called for. About 6 years old when I felt the call to be in close relationship with Jesus. It started when I observed the prayerfulness of my grandmother. I was inspired to imitate her close relationship with God. Through her, I developed that longing to be close to Jesus. And I remember she mentioned to me about becoming a nun. When I was in high school, I studied in the Catholic school. I had a chance to attend Holy Mass and receive Jesus in the Eucharist daily. My desire to become close to Jesus and to becoming a nun was revived because of the presence of the sisters in our school. I shared my desire to my parents, and they advised me to finish first my studies before entering a convent. I continued my studies in the university, taking up Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education since I loved to be a teacher. I was in my 4th year college when I felt that my calling to be a sister became so intense. I was advised to experience teaching to help me discern whether to be a teacher or to be a sister. After my teaching experience, I made my final decision to enter a convent. On May 31, 1987, I was accepted as postulant of the Workers of Christ, the Worker Congregation in Linmansangan, Binalonan, Pangasinan. Here I have found the fulfillment of my calling to be close to Jesus. It is here where I knew the Focolare Movement because our mother foundress adopted the spirituality of unity. It has been part of our life as Worker of Christ, the Worker Sister, to live the life of unity. In my 33 years as a sister, I've been through many challenges and trials. What keeps me going is my love for Jesus and to live the life of unity. I always see to it that I am united with my sisters by accepting and understanding their needs. Although it's not always at once, but the second thought would bring me to be nothing, to welcome the ideas of the others for the sake of unity and compassion. Let me share this concrete experience at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. One of our working students told me that she is experiencing chest pain and even spit blood. The first reaction and the decision by the community was to send her home to be with her family to rest. This decision made her sad because of the family's difficult economic condition. I felt bad about it, but I just let it be. Then the sisters went to check on her situation, and they found out that her situation is miserable and not conducive for recuperation. In the spirit of compassion and in unity with my community, we decided to let her come back to the convent to take care of her until she recovers. Experiencing the love of the sisters, she is happy and physically recovered as she continues her medication.
The life of unity and communion always give me strength to accept and love my suffering and trials with joy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paulina, Sarah and Angel, Au, Alvin, Brother Ryan, and Sister Belen. Through your experiences, we have seen how you have responded to God's love in every moment of your lives with reflection, openness, and freedom. Indeed, like branches on a tree, we all grow in different directions, but our roots remain the same: God's unconditional love.